This is Precise Language Podcast, episode 3. And today we're doing our very first interview with Brandon Burr. Brandon is one of my best friends, and he is also a practitioner of precise language, as well as hypnosis, NLP, computer coding, and lots of other talents and stuff. But today I wanted to have a conversation with you guys and with Brandon to talk about like how precise language works from your point of view, its benefits, your experience with it. Because did you watch my first 2 podcasts?
Not yet. I've started, but I've not finished.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know the story.
Yeah,
how
for sure.
So my first couple episodes, I talk about like the revelation of precise language, and then the second episode, I got into how void and clear language works. So I didn't really get too much into fractaling into precise language. Me and you have worked together on lots of different projects for the past 3 or 4 years or whatever. And I trust your skill set. I mean, Brandon's the one that I go to when I need a rewire of my brain. So kind of like, where does the surgeon go when he needs surgery? So yeah, let's get into it.
Sounds good.
So the first time that I shared precise language with you was, explain to me how it went. I can't remember precisely.
Right. So at the time, we were having a discussion about clarity and being clear on your goals. And that was an area where, let's just say I needed some work on, right? Mm-hmm. And we had talked about your belief systems and how that impacted what you were doing. And I had this idea, because I love mind maps. I'm a logical thinker, but I like thinking in pictures as well. So at the time, I was trying to organize my business on mind maps. I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm just going to go and create a mind map of all these different beliefs that I have. You know, so my identity level statements like I am this, I am that, or I'm not, or I feel this way. And so I just ran through an exercise where I'd go and I'd say something, and then I'd then try to scope down and say, okay, if I were to take that statement, so I'm this kind of person, what does that mean to me? So then I'd go and I'd say like 5 different things or whatever it was based on what I thought about that. You know, sometimes it was good things, sometimes it was bad things, sometimes it was limiting beliefs, sometimes it was positive beliefs.
So give me an example of this, and I'll also watch Hitting the Table.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah. So I'm trying. I mean, it's been so long. It's hard to say, but
do you still have that mind map?
I think I do. It's probably somewhere. Yeah. But I can't think of anything offhand. But so I went through and I made this massive mind map. I mean, it probably had like 100 different things on it. And then I was all excited. I'm like, you know, showing up to class early, like I got the test. And so I brought it to you, and you looked at the whole thing. And I remember the first thing you did, like I was expecting this whole drawn out, like we were doing our 3-hour sessions at the time. And you were like, just do one thing. Just go and find where it says don't in there, and then change it around. And it shook me at first. I was a little bit shocked. I was like, okay, you know, I'll try it. And we went through, and I did that. And the level of clarity it gave me on all of those issues that I had, I realized I had like 4 problems going on in my life, right. But I thought I had like 100 because it was just worked out that way. But it was, and I still say this, it was easily one of the most influential days of my life. And from that meeting, actually, the company that I have now, I have a software company, Jet Webinar. The idea of that came as a result of the clarity that I got from that meeting. Yeah. Because once I was able to clarify my life, which included business, relationships, and other things, I was able to finally see, like, shit, this is what I want, and this is what I'm good at, and this is where I need to go. So, it was an intense session for sure. Yeah. But it was intense, but short. It was precise. You know, right. To use the term.
And I think as I recall it now, because I mean, this was years ago. This was like 3 years ago.
3 years ago, 2014.
So I recall. Hey, don't do that. Sorry, it's my dog. He always interferes in the Precise Language podcast for somehow. Yeah. Go play, buddy. It's becoming clear what I had you do. I had you remove the word "not" or the contraction and apostrophe T.
Yeah.
So in your mind map, you were stating, okay, in my professional life, this is what I want. Okay, you were like, I want, a certain income level. I don't want to be late on my bills again. And you were stating a bunch of things that you didn't want to not be afraid to succeed or whatever it is. And when it came to like dating, it's like, I don't want to freeze up when I talk to the hottest girl in the room. You know what I mean?
Right. And I think that was one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you went in every area of your life, from family to business to dating to money, and I remember the mind map was like me in the center, you as the center, and then it said business, and then all of your beliefs, and then all the problems that you wanted to solve as well. And when you removed all of those knots, those 200 things became 15 things, and it became very clear to see where you felt you were struggling, where you wanted to succeed, what actions you needed to take in order to succeed, and the corrective behaviors. Because when we say, I don't want to freeze up when I talk to the most beautiful woman in the room, when you say that, the image in your head is freezing up talking to a girl in the room, and the feeling in your stomach is sick. That's just a pain loop. In order to correct that, you have to give yourself a new directive. And you have to say, when I see a beautiful woman, I'm going to talk to her even if I'm nervous. Now you have something to tell your brain to do. And I think that you really picked up on this really well because of your computer coding. Because there's no voids in computer coding. You can't tell a computer, don't do this. You can only say, if this happens, do that.
Right. And when an error comes up too, and this is a pattern I've had my whole life since I've been doing programming from a young age. If you write some code and then it errors out, it yells at you, your response is like, stupid fucking computer. No, you're like, oh, interesting. Why did that happen? It must have been something that I've done.
Right.
Right. So therefore you go in, you figure out where you got it wrong, and then you change it, and then you run it again, and that worked better. It's a very simple positive feedback loop, but it makes all the difference when you're, clarifying your goals and stuff like that.
Yeah, I had similar hangups with technology because I thought technology hated me because I couldn't get it to work. And what you had taught me is like, there's always a reason that something's not working. So if it's not working, you simply just need to slow down and say, okay, what's going on here? What do I need it to do? What is it doing? And then you check the code from the beginning and you find out where the error is. And the same thing goes in life. Your brain is just a super dynamic computer that you say that you're like, well, shit, I'm not getting what I want out of life. I'm not making the money. I don't have the body that I want. Like, fucking broken computer. No, it's not out to get you. Like, you're not like all that stuff. There's something wrong in the code because we behave. Our behavior is due to the code of our beliefs, what we actually believe. And a lot of times we believe shit that we don't even know that we believe because we've never consciously visited it. But we consciously visit those beliefs through our actions and the consequences. Why am I still fat? Well, it's because you believe that food is more important than fitness. No, I don't. What do you believe? And now you can start going into breaking down the code and using precise language. Well, do you believe that fitness is important? Yes. Do you believe that food is more important than fitness? No. Well, then why do you eat instead of working out? Now you have to address a real fucking problem of like, you believe it on some level because that's the way you're behaving. And that kind of plays the healing. That's one of the mechanisms of precise language that can be healing to help solve a problem like that.
Yeah. And so as I was thinking about that, I realized unconsciously, right? I wore a shirt today. So this is got ones and zeros on it. This is from the Computer Issue Museum. But computers and the brain are very similar in a lot of ways, where actually I fundamentally believe this, that computers are modeled after how our nervous system works, because we're constantly recreating ourselves in our technology and our art and all this sort of stuff. But in computers, when you're programming, it's ones and zeros. It's very simple, and then you can have different languages and you can parse it in different ways. But if you think about the language, the code of how the mind works, we have thoughts, we have images in our minds. Now, some people think in pictures, some people think in words. They rehearse to themselves. Some people do a combination of both. Everyone has their own preferred way. But then there's another dimension to it. There's the feelings in your body. So when you can pay attention to the thoughts, the emotions, the images that are in your mind, and the feelings in your body, you can see the code running, and then if you link that to what am I doing? So here's what I think, here's what I feel, here's what I do. That gives you a very basic framework, like the ones and the zeros on a computer, to say oh, interesting. Is the computer doing what I want? Because people we tend to make ourselves more complex than we actually are. We're just goal-seeking mechanisms. We want food, we want water, we want to get laid, we want relationships. And, as long as we have all that, then we can maybe paint a picture or something, Right. Then we live out our life, have all that sort of stuff. So we have our, basic motivations, and everything that we do is focused on getting those basic things. So if you've got one area in your life that's off a little bit, all of the code might be a little bit skewed, and then it's sending you in this direction and this direction at the same time, and then you feel stuck. Mm-hmm. But what you're saying is, if you can understand the code, which is really your belief systems and your emotions, and you can pay attention to it, it'll tell you everything you need to know. And this is where precise language comes in, because it gives you a filter, it gives you a lens on which you can objectively look at your thoughts and emotions and understand what they mean, versus just being caught in the clouds or the ether somewhere.
Right. And the thing is the way that people try to solve computer issues is sometimes you turn the computer off, turn it back on, and if that doesn't work, now you have to open up the hood. And opening up the hood is like reading the HTML, okay, the code. And even past that, when you break that down, it's all just the ones and the zeros. And when you use precise language, when you use words that only exist and use them objectively, that's the equivalent of looking at the ones and zeros of a computer. If you can read binary, you can solve any computer problem there is. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's like if you can read the ones and zeros, and I know what that says, you then can solve anything. Mm-hmm. And you can make a computer, if you can think it, you can code it. Because if it can be stated out loud, it can be coded in a computer. Mm-hmm. And so that's the thing. If it can be stated out loud, if it can be articulated into words, then we can make it happen. Just as the computer, so is the human manifestation. Mm-hmm. It's the same shit. And so that's why in any situation that you want to create something new, and something good, something bad, something frivolous, something whatever it is, all it is a complex coding of the way that this universe works. Mm-hmm. And for us to have command over the actions and the results that happen to us, we need to use the code that only humans have. Animals don't have this shit. Angels don't have this shit. Rocks and trees don't have this shit in its language. We have ones and zeros that we can express, manipulate, discover. And that's what makes us creators, mm-hmm. is that we have this code called language. And when it's used the right way, you can do anything. When it's used the wrong way, fuck shit up. So now let's say we have this binary code on you, and instead of a 1 or a 0, I just put an X. It's not a 1. It's not a 0. What would happen to a computer if you just started throwing X's in there?
Well, first it wouldn't understand an X.
Right.
But hypothetically, if you could, it would break the pattern that it was running, and it would tell you in whatever, it might beep, it might yell at you, it might show an error message, and it says syntax error, problem, pay attention to this. And that's something, this was a big turning point in my life when I realized that beep on a computer is actually, in humans, pain.
Yeah.
So when something's going wrong in your life and you feel pain, we're taught, especially culturally, to ignore it or shove it away or like deal with it in a way that's really not productive at all.
Yeah.
But if you can pay attention to your pain, it's going to give you all sorts of information about what you actually need. You know, and this is, I mean, you talk a lot about like the particular concept, which I think is brilliant, of monsters. You know, it's putting a name and a face to the problems that you have in your life and in your psyche and all that. Because once you can name it, you can deal with it and do all that. But you know, paying attention to your pain helps you notice the areas where you need to go in and take a look at the code of, oh, interesting, so that feels off to me. Why does that feel off? You know, what around this? And this is where like my mind map really helped out, because like these are the areas where I'm feeling pain. These are the areas where I'm struggling in my life. So let me go in and actually look at what's there. So then I can see like, okay, well, now if I know what's there, like, how do I fix it? Because assuming it's a problem that can be fixed and solved to begin with, that's the first step, which is telling you have to tell yourself that you have enough control to actually solve the problem. Versus what a lot of people, like, I hear a lot of people do this, they externalize their problems and they just assume, oh, that's just the way I am. You know, oh, it's genetics or it's my family or something. But like you divorce yourself of any power that way. You want to say like, oh, this is something that I can change. You know, even if you caused it yourself, like, oh, maybe I caused this in my life. Yeah. Good, because if you cause it, you have the ability to change it. Right. You know, and then like you said, you know, the language itself, you know, the words that you use and internal and external, pay attention to that, and then clarify it more, you know, with precise language. And
you say, you know, people divorce, the only thing that you said there that was void was people divorce themselves from power. Divorce is a void because everything's always connected on some level. So they need to understand their power. And hell is a state of mind. It's when pain is running your operating system, and there's nothing you can do about it, okay? Or you think there's nothing you can do about it. And I've said this before. Hell is the false realization that you're not in control, because you always are. There's always a way to find a solution. Sometimes that solution is shitty, but there is a solution for everything, and you have to realize that. And there are consequences for all actions, and so if you can take a look at where you have the power, at that point it is when you can take control and make those decisions. You always have a choice, always. Yeah.
And this is something that I really jumped onto, this idea that if you accept the presupposition that the majority of things that happen in your life, I mean, obviously things happen that are outside your control, that just, you know, come about. But most of the stuff, the problems that you have in your life, actually come back to something that either you did at one point, or you did earlier in your life, or something, let's say, it goes back to your family. But if you accept that and you start to make changes in your life, what happens is you start, I call it clearing your shit. So once you take out the trash, like clear everything out, now you've got the ability to see everything that's going on in your life to a much clearer degree. So when you make decisions moving forward, you're actually more likely to have better outcomes. So then over time, what happens is you actually have less and less problems, for a couple of different reasons. But then, number one, you take care of your problems. But number two, when a problem starts, it typically starts small.
Right. Yeah.
So, like, let's say, you know, financially, if you have financial problems, it's not like it just shows up like, holy shit, this bill came due. You know it's coming due.
Right.
So if you have order and pay attention to all those areas, you can see far enough out that once something starts to become an issue, you deal with it when it's small versus when it's big.
Yeah.
And then from there, you tend to life gets a lot easier. You know, and the things that are unpredictable or that are chaotic that just come out of the ether, they're more manageable because it's like Warren Buffett said this. He's like, it's better to build an ark than to predict the rain. Because if you work on yourself and integrate all your parts and you clarify your language and your thoughts, you know who you are. So when shit hits the fan, like you're solid, and I think that's a critical part of life.
Right. Yeah. I know how to behave because I have taken the time and used the language to see the way I should behave. This seems minor, but like people often don't think about how much actual physical time they spend recovering from themselves being reactive. For most people, it's most of their life.
I'd say 95% for most people.
Right. And so when you can preemptively see who you are and see what the belief system is, it's easy for you to not sin. Sinning essentially is when your intentions, your words, and your actions don't match up. So if I believe killing dogs is a great thing, and I tell you that killing dogs is a great thing, and I kill a dog, I'm technically perfect. I'm an asshole, subjectively, but objectively, you're within integrity. And acting outside of your integrity is where most problems happen. That's where like most misbehavior is because you're acting outside of your conscious your conscious belief system. And so to fix that, you either have to figure out what you really believe and shift it, and you can only shift it when you figure out what you believe, or just push it aside, which inevitably you'll come back and circle that up.
Right. So an image that came to my mind when I was working through the integrity problem, as you talk about. So our universe is built on integrity. It's the laws of physics work precisely the way they do all the time. There's no mistake. Okay? Now, humans, for some reason, we're the only thing in creation that can lie, right? This table can't lie about being a table. Like, it's a table. It's here. Now humans can create this, but a structure that's built is the reason I can set this glass on top of this table is because it has structural integrity, because it does what it says it's going to do. Because if this table, let's say it had a broken leg or two broken legs, and I go through as somebody who's a creator and I put this on top of the table and it falls down, what am I going to do? I'm going to say, well, you know what, this is not really useful for my purposes, so I'm just going to throw it out in the dumpster. Now but if it was in integrity and it was standing here, now I can build things on top of it. And that's why integrity is so important in your life, because when you're using your thoughts, words, and actions in a way that creates alignment, it's really easy to get stuff done because everybody believes what you say.
Right, yeah, right.
Because when you say something, you do it, and they notice that. And then when you ask them for something, they're like, oh, okay. Right. And, try building a business when everybody believes what you say. It's real easy,
Yeah, right.
Try closing the sale when they think you're going to follow through on what you say. It's real easy, you know? But then, and this is what people do, they think they can get away with lying. No, you can't. Because you might get away with it once. Right. Maybe even twice. But then all of a sudden, people start saying you're a shitbag. Right. And then the word gets around, reputation, like that guy's going to screw you. And then guess what? All those deals dry up. Right. So, integrity is it's more difficult in the short term because you want to spend time and build a good table. But in the long term, it's so much better because, with integrity, you can build Sears Tower. You can build skyscrapers. That shit scales. Yeah. The universe is built on scale of integrity. The Milky Way stays together, doesn't fall apart. Why? Because everything does what it says it's going to do. It's laws of physics.
For a long time, I've just had such a poor memory. I don't know if it's from the 200 high-grade fevers I've had. I don't know if it's just the way I'm built. Whatever. The best solution to memory is integrity. I don't have to remember anything because I'm consistently the same dude all the time. Right. So I don't have to. You don't have to remember anything. Lying just creates such a huge ledger of things that you have to remember. And okay, so this is true to Brandon because I told him one thing, but then I told Dalton another thing. So now the record of truth, I've got to keep two records that are separate that are different for different people. That's exhausting, and you never have to do that when your intentions, your thoughts, okay, your words and your actions are all the same thing. When you think about success in anything comes through the result of actions taken. Actions taken it's all clear words. That's why actions are the best form of seeing what people's beliefs are, because you can't argue with it. Like I can tell you that, you know, this right here, what I have in my hands, it's not a baseball, and I can confuse you and make you wonder what this whole thing is. Once I hold this thing up, I can't tell you shit. It's a cup. You know what I mean? As a business owner, you give directives of telling people things to do, and that's how shit gets done. And so when your higher self, your mind is saying, okay, I want to get this done, whatever it is, build a business, find a life partner, whatever you desire, you know, you have to. Your brain is constantly telling you to do things, because it can't tell you to not do anything, because you're always doing something. That's part of precise. It's one of the things of language. You're always doing something. So I can say to you, don't put your cup down, and you freeze. Like, you're still doing something, or stop doing that. Stop doing what? Like, I'm always doing something. I stopped this, but now I'm sitting here freezing. So tell me what to do. So now, if you know how to use language to give yourself clear directives by removing by speaking in universal truth, everything is some place and everything is something and somewhere, everything is moving all the time, and everything's true from some perspective. And then you use that language to give yourself directives of what you're going to do. Then the game, once you get precise language down and you're able to give yourself those directives, the game is then measured. The rules are precise language. The measure is integrity. Did you do what you said? So like I don't want to be fat anymore. Well, what do you want to be? I want to be lean and have a six pack. What do you need to do to get a six pack? I need to eat my vegetables and drink only water and work out 4 days a week. Okay, that sounds like a reasonable plan. Like, that's science. Okay, that's how you get a six pack. Okay, how bad do you want this? I want it really bad. Do you want it more than sleeping an extra hour more in the morning and junk food? Yes. Sweet. I'll see you in a week. Now, now it's like, okay, report card time. This is what you wanted. This is how I know you want it. You said it. So your thoughts, your words. Now let's see your actions. Did you eat vegetables, waters, and lean sources of protein? No? Then you don't want a six pack. You want something else. You know what I mean? It proves where your desires are, and so it's super easy to check. Are you within integrity of your word? Are you who you say you are? And so it's super simple. Do the things you say and get the things you want. As long as you have a good strategy, you know how to articulate that strategy using precise language, and you have integrity, you can have anything. And strategy is fucking simple. Google it.
Yeah.
Get yourself a coach. Find someone else who implemented the strategy that worked. Pay them, or give that to them somehow. You know, work for free, whatever you got to do, and get the strategy. Use the precise language to give yourself directives. Check up on your integrity. And that's why I'm so adamant about journaling and like documenting your day and checking in with yourself. Am I good? Have I done what I said? Yeah.
Well, you brought up a key point that I think it's really important for people to understand, that because this is part of the natural process of, let's say you want to lose weight. Okay, so I don't want to be fat. Okay, what do you want? I want to lose weight. How much weight do you want to lose? Okay, so now you narrow out the strategy. But then you go and then you focus on executing the activities that you need to get it done. And let's say you slack off. Let's say you go, you start eating pizza when you should be eating salad. Okay. Most people view that as, oh, I failed. I fucked up, I screwed up, okay. And then they get frustrated that they said they were going to do something and then they fall through on it, okay. But it's important to understand that we're built with many different, you want to call it sub-personalities. So different parts of us that are pointing in different directions. And especially when you're first starting to get in this kind of work, you might have this part of you pointing there, this part pointing there, this part pointing there. You know, like I talk about when I talk with people about building wealth or building a business, part of you might want to make $1 million. The other part might want to hang out at the beach. Well, okay, you're going to have to choose, okay? And a lot of people may have trouble choosing, but you do have to choose. So there's a part of this process. When you create that clarity, when you create the strategy and the plan, like, okay, I'm going to make $1 million. I'm going to lose 50 pounds. And then you start moving towards that. You're likely, in fact, I'd say you are going to run into obstacles. What you do is, oh, interesting. I noticed that I did this instead of this. Why is that? And now you take this process of clear language and then you scope down, because what you need to do is take the part of you that wants to sit on the beach and the part of you that wants to make $1 million and have them start talking.
Right.
And the only way that they can talk is if they're speaking the same language, which is clear language, precise language. And then from there, now you can say, okay, well, the reason I want this is because this reason. The reason I want this is because this reason. And then you might say, like, okay, well, we can actually like come together for this reason, and then now these two things are taken care of. Right. Okay, this is why like knowing yourself is so important, and then following this process, because when you do, now all of these conflicting parts of you that are pointing off in different directions now start to say, oh, okay, how about we just all follow the same road, you know, go at the same speed, and we'll get there a lot faster. I mean, that's efficient right there. You use low energy, it's high efficiency, high output, and when you do this process over time, you get to your goals really fast. Yeah. Where you actually spend a lot of time, like you have to create new goals because you're like, oh, I want to do this, and then you do it. Right. You know, which is, and then the more you do it, the more you believe, and this is where the integrity comes into play. The more you believe in your own integrity, so you actually believe in yourself. You're like, well, last time I said I was going to lose 25 pounds, I did it in a month and a half or whatever it is, right? So you have that confidence to take forward in any area of life. Right. You know, so it's a compound effect. It's like compound interest. Right. Where you just win like all the time, you know, right? Yeah, through failure, but you win. Right,
and the thing is like those conflicting feelings. Okay, so the it's really dangerous when you say I want to lose weight, want to get in shape, and so I'm never going to eat fast food. Never's a void. There is some circumstance of which you would eat fast food. No, and this is where I get into people. No, never. And it's important for you to see that boundary. Why? Because when you fail, and when you eat fast food, I'm going to ask you if that lowest case denominator came. Okay, so I'm never going to eat fast food. Okay, what if you go broke, and you're on the street, and you haven't eaten in 6 days, and someone brings you a cheeseburger? Are you going to eat it? Now, well, that would never happen. That's not it. It never's a void. It can happen in my imagination, and it already has in my imagination. So I answer the question: would you eat it then? Yes. Okay. Let's say, and you keep going. Let's say you didn't lose your job, but money's really, really tight, and you just smoked a bunch of weed, and you got the munchies, and someone comes home with a bag full of cheeseburgers. Are you gonna eat it then? No, I wouldn't eat it then. Okay, so now it's you would eat it if you were homeless and starving. Yes? Okay. So now, week goes by, client comes back, and I'm like, how'd it go? It's like, did you eat any cheeseburgers? Yeah, I folded. What happened? Did you lose your job and go? So it's like, okay, so were you telling the truth when you said that this is the only circumstance I would eat a burger? Or do you need to make a new agreement? Because they might give you like, I was at my sister's birthday party, that's what they were serving, my grandmother made burgers handmade, I got tons of peer pressure. Okay, so let's set this straight now. I will only eat cheeseburgers when I get pressured by my family. Is that acceptable to you? If the answer is yes, and you still want to lose 25 pounds, okay, How often is that going to happen? Once a week? Once a month? Okay, and how can we still get the goal? What would we have to do to balance that? Oh, well, I guess I'd have to do another day of cardio instead of 4 days a week. I have to go to 5. Okay, is that something you're willing to do? Yes. Okay, now it comes by, and I'm like, how many days of cardio did you do? Like 5? Sweet. Did you get tempted by your family? Yes. Did you eat? Yes. I ate the burger. Sweet. So now, like, you can have your cake and eat it too, no pun intended. Okay, you can still lose weight and have that, but you have to find out the position in your life. The beach analogy is perfect. I want to make $1 million, but I also want to live on the beach. So now the question is that people are like, I'm just going to dedicate myself. I'm going to go all in. Okay, so are you willing to die never going to the beach again for the sake of your $1 million? If it's yes, then okay. Then don't complain about the beach. This is what you want. But it's like, well, I mean, I love the beach so much, I still want to go. Under what context would you go? Well, I want to make $1 million. Like, well, what if you made $700,000? Would you reward yourself with a trip to the beach? Yeah? Okay. Now, what if it's $25,000? Would you reward yourself with the beach? Yeah. Okay. What if someone offers you a free trip to the West Coast? All expenses paid. You can still work. You going to the beach then? So now you're seeing this, and it's like then you call the next day. It's like, oh, dude, like where were you on Wednesday? I was at the beach with my girl. Oh, did you make $700,000? and so it's using precise language is a way for you to sign a contract with yourself with very clear terms. And so so now it hurts when the integrity, it's like, nah, shit, I'm a piece of shit. Like, I said I wasn't going to do something and I did it. So it's like, then watch your mouth. Careful what you want. Because it feels like shit when you act outside of your integrity. And we want to sensitize ourselves to being out of integrity with ourselves. Again, that's the measure. That is the pain. And like you said, a lot of people try to mute their pain or hide or run from it or just get it out of the way. Which, by the way, hiding, running, get it out of the way, like those are all voids. Because you're always running towards something. You know what I mean? You can't hide because you're always exposed to something. You know. And it doesn't go away because everything is always somewhere, so it has to go somewhere. So pain usually, like your monsters that cause you pain, your inner demons, your whatever you want to call them. Like, we feel like there's this spiritual force that's against us, and your monsters are part of your team. They're a very important part of your team because they're the ones that are like, hey, pay attention. So there's two emotional entities in your brain. Your angels that tell you, you're doing great, keep doing that. And then your monsters that say, hey, pay attention, make a pivot. Neither one of them is saying that they love you or that they hate you. There's not one of them. Like, you need both of those things for you to make wise choices. This feels great, keep doing that. This feels shit, pay attention, make a move. And that's why, you know, in the we haven't really gone into the 5 pillars of progress, the 5 questions, which is, what do you want? What's standing in your way? What's your next big move? And what is your drug? What behaviors do you resort to when you're struggling getting the thing that you want? Your little pleasure bombs. And then what type of person on an identity level has what you want? Like, who do you need to be in order to do that? And as long as you're asking those 5 questions whenever a problem comes up, I'm in pain. What do you want? I want to feel good. What's standing in your way? Like sitting at a desk for 19 hours a day. Okay, what do you resort to when you're feeling that way? I take drugs. I take smoke weed or take a muscle relaxer or whatever. Or maybe it's eating, or maybe it's just like I want to sleep it away. And like, what type of what type of person back doesn't hurt? Like a fitness person, someone who pays attention to their body and has it in lifestyle. And what's your next move? Well, I think it's pretty obvious what your next move is. Like, you need to get up and move. And so any piece of pain articulated into language, filtered through those 5 questions, measured by integrity, one of 2 things happens. You succeed, which then you can scale, or you fail and you address it using this formula, and you actually get more powerful. So you either grow more or get more powerful. That's the whole concept of invincibility.
It's a win-win.
It's a win or you win more.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So it's either, well, I can either succeed and win, or I can really succeed and fail gracefully. Mm-hmm. And that can be applied literally to writing computer code and saying, I'm having this problem, to resolving a relationship, to losing weight, getting out of depression. I've seen this, and I'm super apprehensive to talk about all of the physical healing because, people. But I have seen this method of communicating with your consciousness, of precise language and integrity, heal physical elements, hemorrhoids, fever diseases, sciatic nerve pain, all types of shit. Mm-hmm. I've seen it completely rid people of addictions, smoking, drinking, rage, hyper anxiety, confusion, existential crises. Mm-hmm. It's everything that we do is for emotional fulfillment. Mm-hmm. Everything, that's what we're going for. And when we've been given this beautiful tool called language, and an existence where we can think, speak, and move and do shit. Mm-hmm. And those are the 3 things that make sure that shit goes the way it's supposed to.
And that's something that this idea of growing stronger over time, because you're constantly testing yourself, you're testing your belief systems, you're testing your thoughts, you're testing your integrity, and constantly pushing the limits of where you can go. Mm-hmm. So, like you had mentioned, the idea of people like have emotional struggles, they have, whether it's mental illnesses or like physical or whatever's going on. I tend to, at least in my own personal experience, and just from what I've seen in life, see that when people break down, whether it's, mental issues or whether it's, something maybe physical in their life, obviously not all cases, but sometimes, people tend to break down at their weakest point. So let's say something intense happens in your life, or a couple of intense things happen in your life. You lose a business, the economy goes under, and then you get sick, or someone gets sick, and just a lot of stuff coming together. It's like all this input into your system, and then it tends to stretch your capability, and then wherever your weakest point is, that's where something shows up.
Right, and that can happen in an emotional level where mm-hmm. you freak out and get anxiety. It can happen in a physical level where you throw your back out. Mm-hmm. That can be on a cellular level and give you cancer. Yeah,
psychosomatic is a huge thing, and this is why I found so much solace in understanding and being able to apply this process, because we're built to do things. We're built to achieve goals, and the stronger we can become, the more capable we are in the world. So when you go through and you actually work through your own shit, when you think through all your emotions, your beliefs, and all this stuff, it might be in the context of like a relationship that you have with a significant other, or like a friendship, or working in your dating life, or a business. But that process of growing actually makes you a stronger person in general, so that when life throws chaos at you, you can turn it into habitable order. Mm-hmm. And then ultimately what happens then is you become a beacon for people where they look at you and they look up to you because they're like, wow, that guy really has his shit together. Or like, wow, that's a leader, or whatever it happens to be, because, when most other people would freak out, you've got it together. And people, like, we're hardwired to look at people like that and just, like, think that they've got something that we need to be a part of because they know more than we do, and, like, they're going to lead the way. So, there's so many benefits to, like, applying this process and, like, intentionally, like, pressing yourself really hard everywhere in life. And that's one of the reasons we started doing martial arts together, is I realized, like, that's an area where I was weak in, the physical stuff and, like, fitness and all that. And certainly, like, getting punches thrown at you is a good way to learn real fast, like, what you need to do to not get hit or to dodge a punch or whatever it is. So, but even using the precise language framework, I use that in martial arts to improve my skill.
Right.
And we were doing it the other day in class where, we were trying to do footwork stuff, and I was, like, getting thrown off balance, and I'm like, well, hold on, let me think clearly, like, where in my body am I weakest? Where's my weakest point that's breaking me down? And, and I started squatting down. Like, I'm getting better at doing squat motions, but, better than where I was, have a long way to go. And you had pointed out, like, there was a certain muscle that, happened to be tight. And one our martial arts instructor said, oh, do you run a lot? It's like, well, yeah, I do. He's like, well, that's when you run, that particular muscle gets strong. Or it tightens.
Yeah.
So anyways, the fact that I've ran a lot actually affects the combative, like, martial arts stuff that I'm doing. So everything's all tied in together. But by understanding the clear language process, like, this is why I say you can apply it everywhere in your life to become stronger, even if it's physical, because it's the same process in every part of being human.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, because you can figure anything out, because the answer to any complex problem is only a series of questions. It might be a lot of questions, but it is simply just a series of questions. So it's like, do this squat, and you say, I can't. Well, how far can you go? Can't is avoid. You can do something. Squat down as far as you can. Okay. And then it's like, okay, this is my best. And now we see, okay, where are you weak? You evaluate, I'm weak here. Would you like to be able to squat down all the way? Yes. How do you strengthen that muscle? Like, well, if you have the answer to strengthening that muscle, you have the answer to the ability to squat. So you don't have to be a personal trainer, physical therapist. You need Google. How do I strengthen this muscle? YouTube it. It's there. You know what I mean? So if you know how to ask these type of intelligent, clear questions, then again, strategy's free. Mm-hmm. How do you strengthen a tibialis anterior? Look it up. Or shin splints muscles, shin muscles. It's there, and it's this when Leaf kind of like realized precise language, got really excited. He's like, oh my gosh, this could apply to anything. It could apply to parents being better parents. So a kid's jumping up and down on the couch, and you say, don't do that, or he's messing with his brother. Don't touch your brother. And kids are real smart. Don't touch your brother. I'm not touching you. I'm not touching you. I'm not touching you. And so they find the loopholes to misbehave through your language. Touching your brother, fucking with your brother. Please sit down and read a book for the next 15 minutes. I need to focus, so I need silence. Tell that to your kid. And now you have not one, it's either he obeys or he doesn't. And then you can do that. If you choose to do anything other than that, then I'm going to put you in your room. What would you like to do? And now it's like, and so now you're not controlling, you're not demanding, you're legit telling a kid you have a choice. So like, you don't want to sit down and read a book, you would like to do anything other than that, that is okay. Here's the consequence of that. I'm going to put you in your room. So, opposed to, don't touch your brother or you're grounded. there's a lot of other ways to disrespect, because that's, again, like, don't touch your brother. Well, I got to touch something. So it's like, sit on your hands. Okay, now now you control it. So it's the same thing with conflict resolution. I was speaking with someone today, talking about two employees that were not getting along. Okay, there's tension, and we asked the question, like, what would a good resolution in your mind be? And the person, it was like, there's no resolution. I will never be in the same room with this person. Well, hold up. We have an apocalypse. You're the last two people on Earth. He's got food. You don't. You'll be in the same room with him. You'll find a way to make it work. Okay, so you will make it work under some circumstance. So now let's find the minimum circumstance. Like, I asked the question, okay, the way that you'd like to be treated when that person walks into the door. Would you like them to say hello? Like, how would you like to be respected? Because you hear, like, that person doesn't respect me. They're mean. They're passive aggressive. They ignore me. Those are all voids. You know what I mean? Like, passive, you're always actively doing something. Ignore, you're always paying attention to something. So it's like, what would you like to see happen? I would like for that person to walk in and say hello to me. Okay. Would you like them to use your name? Hello, Brandon. Right? That would be nice. Okay. Well, now we sit in a room and say, look, I'm feeling a lot of tension. Here's the way that I would like things. This is what would make me feel respected. When you walk in, say hello and say my name. And then you give a person a choice to be removed instead of just saying, fire that person, they're a piece of shit. It's like, well, like, give them the chance to act like a piece of shit. If you want me to say hello to you when I walk into a room and I say no, well, okay. Well, then I don't. Then okay. Then you can't work here. You know what I mean? You got to go work somewhere else. Said clearly. Yeah. So it applies just to so many things, because language is what makes humans the most dominant species in the world, and it's the reason that we are more advanced than every other creature on both ends. We lie and kill, and unlike any other creature in the world, we do terrible shit to each other. But on the other hand, we got the internet. You know what I mean? Like we have buildings. We build on generations because we can communicate about the past and the future. Like, a monkey from 100 years ago can learn nothing, or a monkey from today can learn nothing from a monkey 100 years ago that isn't in its DNA. We can. I was reading some Einstein shit the other day. I don't know if that was 100 years ago, but you get my point. You know? Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say that, too. It's that we have, as humans, the ability to access time, the past and the future, and we do that through our language. You know, we can speak into the future. We can speak of the past. And if you were a dog, I mean, dogs really have no concept of, like, oh, what happened 3 days ago? Or let me think and strategize and plan for next week, you know, when my owner comes back. So when you clarify your language and you really hone in on your beliefs and what you're saying, what happens is you start to be able to a certain degree, speak your future into existence. Which is why it's extremely important for people to understand how they use their language and be able to speak clearly, because the principle works all the time, even if you have no idea what you're doing. So all the crap that's showing up in your life, you might be speaking into existence. You might want to consider that. And sometimes I tell people this. It's kind of a useful metaphor, but imagine you're this grand, powerful wizard. Okay, so you're Dumbledore, whatever it is. And you have this magical ability to speak, and then the universe falls into being. So imagine you can do that. How careful would you be with your language? Like, how careful would you be in the things that you say?
Yeah.
And it's important to think about your language and yourself that way, because I mean, to a certain degree, that is what we do. So if you go and you start to speak clearly, if you start to pay attention to the words that you use, and making sure you're giving yourself and others clear directives, and especially yourself, because you can go, if you dwell on a situation that's negative in the future, you might actually end up attracting that because you're bringing in the negative emotions associated with that and then drawing it to your existence. So when you clarify your goals, when you clarify your thoughts, you know who you are, you know who you have to become in order to move towards that. Now your future starts to become a little bit more compelling and clear and a lot more enjoyable. And if you're happier, if you're more enjoying life, people around you tend to, like you a lot more too. So they might give you more things. They might do more things for you. You might be able to do more things with them. There's so many different ways to win, by the simple process of understanding your language. And this is why I tell people, like, if there's one thing that you can do and master, it's that. Because from that, majority of everything else is built from that. It's the fundamental thing that we have as humans that no other species has.
Right. And in fact, everything is built from that. This table right here started as a thought in someone's head. Mm-hmm. They turned that thought into language. That language spurred activity, or that language I want to make a table spurred on the creation process of asking the 5 questions. Mm-hmm. I want a table. That's one question. Okay, what's standing in your way for making a table? Like, what do you need? I need wood. I need tools. I need this. So they got that. Mm-hmm. Okay, what you need? What's your next move? I need to put it together. And it started with a thought, turned into words, turned into actions that were all the same. Want a table? I want to make a table, and then I make a table. It's speaking. It's all speaking. Just one's done in the brain, one's done with the mouth, and one's done with your actions. Right. When you're acting something out, you're speaking language, just in the form of movement, and it becomes 4th density thought, then 3rd density word, then 2nd density movement turns into 1D, which is a thing, which is this table. Right. And if you look at the creation story, any creation story, but I'll use the Christian one, that it's like God said, "Let there be light." Then there was light. He looked at it and said, "This is good." And that story, whether you take it as literal or not, one way or another, it's a story, and it represents the simplicity of creation. Imagine it, speak it, say it, observe it, celebrate it, do something else. Mm-hmm. Okay, so God's like, "Let there be light." Separated the light and the darkness. He sat there and he's like, "This is good." Then the day turns and he's like, "All right, what else? What do we got? It's like, okay, let there be land and water. There was land. He said, he thought, he said, he did, it was. He looked at it and it was like, it's good. He checked its integrity. Is this it? Words, thoughts, actions? This is it. It is good. Mm-hmm. Then the next day, he's like, "Hey, I want this." And after that, he created man in his own image, with his own with this ability to speak things into existence, and then we took it from there. And it's so difficult to articulate something so simple that is the result of everything that exists, because it's almost too simple to believe. And I say this whenever I teach someone, precise language, or when I go into like some serious like transformation coaching. Mm-hmm. I'm like, I could give you the answer right now, but you wouldn't believe me enough you wouldn't believe it enough for it to hold a high priority in your belief system. The table is a good example that you brought up, and this is something I think about a lot. Even walking downtown Chicago, I see skyscrapers and I think of this. So this table, if you look at the wood that this was made from, came from a tree. Where did the tree come from? We had water, ultimately it was a seed, and then there was dirt, there was ground. You can trace it all back, and
all of this came from the Big Bang. Like, it's been around for billions of years. This table that we're sitting on right now or sitting right next to is billions of years old. What changed? Obviously, Earth was created, asteroids, whatever, however it came to be. But then humans came along. Humans had the ability to imagine. Humans had the ability to create visions in their mind and then speak with their words plans into existence, right? So then someone said, hey, you know what would be great? A place to set my shit. And then like, well, if I were to do that, how would I do that? I was kind of setting it on the ground, but now I could set it like above the ground. So they create an image of this thing that they would eventually call a table, and now they're like, okay, so I just need, some wood to do this. So let me go chop down a tree and do this. What happened is they took something that was billions of years old and then through thinking created higher order. And this is the process of using language in our life. And I say everything you do follows the same process. Now, it's important to be very clear about what you're thinking, because if you said, oh, I'm going to make this table and I'm going to give it 2 legs, how well would that table work? I mean, it might work for about 15 seconds and then your shit's on the floor. And then you're like, this sucks. I'm going to do something else. But when you build something that's stable, whether it's an internal mental image or the words and stories that you use or something actual physical, it's something that's enduring, that lasts, that you can build on in your life. And this is like who you want to build yourself to be. You want to build a personality, build an identity that's solid, that you can set shit on.
Right.
Because it's like, I go back to this analogy, is compound interest is a universal principle. The word like exponential compound growth is how the universe comes into being. So when you sort your shit out and you start to pay attention and like really work out your belief systems in your mind, you become like the table where you can build on top of it, and your life will grow exponentially in all the different ways that you want. It's incredible. It's an incredible process.
Yeah, and this realization of how shit works is the next ascension for humans. This is what's waiting behind the curtain of the quarter life crisis, the midlife crisis, the part where it's like, okay, well, all of the other rules of I must compete with everyone to win and be independent and have my money and have my stuff, and then it's like, well, you look at it and you say, this is good. I have a home, pay my bills, my lights are on, got the internet, I got my best gal, or best guy, I got friends. People love me, and I contribute to society. I don't take anything else. I'm not in jail. And just like in the creation story, another day passes, and you have to create something else. And you can no longer create, what are you going to do? Create more money? That'll make you marginally more happy. Are you gonna more achievements or whatever? It's about understanding that oh shit, everything I do, I'm creating. And becoming aware that creation is not just the goal that you have to meet your benchmark of whatever that is. It's happening constantly with every image you have in your head, every word you say with your mouth, and every action you take, you're creating. And that's where it's what hustle is to accomplishment, mindfulness is to creation. So you want to accomplish a goal, you hit it Gary Vee style. You hustle, you work, you get your 60 hours. But when you realize that you're creating in everything that you do, it's about being mindful, which means doing everything on purpose. Actions are all done with intention, purpose. The words you use, you're cautious because they have purpose. And even the thoughts in your head. And if you can have command over of what you're trying to think, what you're trying to say, and what you're trying to do, then you can point that creation mechanism in any direction that you want, and just gold comes out everywhere. You as long as your integrity is on, everything falls into place. Yeah. And then
it only limits your own creativity in that level.
And at that point, again, when you're going accomplishment style, you endure pain. You power through. Like all the doubt and the pain, you say fuck you to all that pain and you go. When you're playing this next level of ascension, of an ascended human, and you either win by doing it right, or you get stronger, you either grow or get more powerful. Well, at some point, things are going really well because your integrity is on your way, and your problems start to dwindle. And at some point, you're like, well, I'm growing, but with this growth, I need to be more powerful. So what you start to do is you start to create your own problems. And everybody has problems. I got problems. He got problems. The only difference to someone who is enlightened and uses precise language to be aware and mindful is that you get to choose your problems. Monsters don't hunt me anymore. I hunt them. I'm looking for bullshit to consume to make me more powerful. It's one of the reasons that I coach. It's like, you got shit, bring it to me. Because now I gain power through helping you win your struggle. Shit. Like, that's great. And again, it's like, we always use this phrase, like, what does God do when he's bored? He breaks shit. he breaks shit and he puts it back together. You know what I mean? And that's what you end up doing is like, you don't ruin shit, but you find new problems. So like Bill Gates, what does the richest man do in the world when he won the game of accomplishment, when he has more money than anybody? He ends malaria. He doesn't start malaria in order to end it. He seeks out a problem. Malaria, he didn't have to deal with it. He didn't get bit by a mosquito and then all of a sudden he had malaria and he's like, oh, now I'm going to fight malaria. No, he's bored. What am I going to do? What is so audacious that I wonder if I can even do it? What can I do where I will question even myself that I might fail? What can I do that will cause me to fail so quickly that it hurts? I'm gonna end world hunger. Yeah. I'm going to end the. I think malaria kills more people than.
It's one of the top.
Right. That's what I'm going to do. And the world still has some malaria, so he's failing constantly as he's getting more powerful and so he does something good. Keep doing that. Something fails. How do I make this stronger? And then he asks the questions. And anyone that succeeds on this level is doing this precise language thing, the integrity thing, and the 5 pillars thing. They just don't know. Kind of like Tiger Woods when he was 2 years old hitting a 200-yard drive. He doesn't know that he's got perfect lag in his wrists, and then he's coming through the club face at an outward 8-degree angle and turning his hands over. He's just doing it.
Yeah, and I was actually reading an article today that was talking about Elon Musk, and there was this guy who was mentioning, he had spoken with Elon over the years, and he was talking about back in 2001. So Elon had sold PayPal at the time, and he just set this, what do you do when I don't know what he made, $200 million? Something crazy, more than a cheeseburger, right? Yeah. You've got all the cheeseburgers you need. So he's like, what do I want to, what does humanity need? And he's like, well, we need to be a multi-planet species. Okay, audacious goal, right? Yeah. But he knew nothing about rockets at all. So space, all this sort of stuff, no way. Like he had just been doing computers. So he was talking about how Elon went out. He said, well, okay, how do we do this? What rocket should I buy? I've never had that conversation. And then someone said, oh, buy these Russian rockets. He's like, okay, I'll buy the cheap ones so I can make my money last longer. Okay. But he, through the process of setting a really ridiculous goal for himself, who says that? Let's just figure out how to colonize Mars. Okay. That's audacious. And knowing very little about it, decided to figure it out along the way through this constant stress testing. It's like now he learned a lot more about rockets. Like, how do you launch them? How do you do? So you break down this big goal into the smaller components. It's the same process that you're talking about. It's just, okay, what do I need first? Maybe a rocket might help. Okay,
yeah, right.
Let's start with the smaller one. What do we do with the rocket? Okay, we got to put some fuel in it. Let's launch it. All right, see how that goes. Well, that blew up. That sucks.
Right.
How do we how do we solve that for next time? But so it's whether you're fixing relationships in your life or trying to put people on Mars, it's like whatever you want to do. And that's why I say that it only limits your creativity once you've got the process down. Because you can always acquire the resources to do it.
Right. By asking the question, what do I need? Or what do I want? A rocket. What is standing in my way? Resources. How do I go? Then what's your move on getting resources? Like you just keep asking those questions. When it breaks, is like, okay, I want to shoot the rocket up and have it come back and land. What does the rocket, when you want it to do that and that fails, how does it fail? What's your drug, right? How does it tend to fail? Well, it tips over. Well, why does it tip over? What's making it tip over? Well, the balance. How do we solve it? Like, what's the next move? How do we solve that? It's this constant just asking of these same questions to figure anything out. That's why it's known as the universal creation tool. Like I said, send it to Mars, fix a relationship. I've worked with people with erectile dysfunction. I had one client, my dick won't get up. Well, okay. Well, what happens? What happens?
It's more important than going to Mars, getting that
fixed. but through asking these questions, you can actually start to realize that it's happening. It's happening when you're feeling inferior. Well, why do you feel inferior? Well, I feel, and you go into that, and it's like, well, how do we make that feel better? Maybe you just need a conversation with your girl. Well, have a conversation with your girl. Boom. Like we figured it out. So it really applies to anything, which is what makes it so hard to explain, is because it is like, what is it? Oh, it's everything. Like it's what does it help? Everything, So that's the point of these podcasts, is to get other people's experience with precise language and their take on it. I'm glad that we did this. I'm glad that you were the first one to do this with me. People ask me all the time, like, who's your coach, right? And I have much like an MMA fighter. You know what I mean? Like we have one martial arts coach because we're kind of like recreational doers, right? But when you're an MMA fighter, you have a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu coach, you have a boxing coach, you have a kickboxing coach, you have, all that when you're high level, because you know to go with specifics. And I'm like happy to say that Brandon is one of my coaches. We meet at least once a week. And if we're not doing a project together, we make it a point to meet once a week just to catch up and bounce ideas off of each other. Because what's really cool is, like, when you speak precise language and someone else is speaking precise language with you, to resolve an issue or figure something out, to figure out why you're behaving a certain way, to figure out a tough decision that you need to make, to figure out what your strategy is. Man, when two people are acting or talking precise, we can get 3 hours worth of therapy or coaching done in 30 minutes because we know how to just like how to target, and then you learn how to ask better questions. So now, like when I typically work with one of my students, like I have to start asking these broad questions to kind of like whittle it down to figure out exactly what it is. But when you know someone well and you understand these tools, like, I mean, we can do an entire identity shift that would take a normal person, 3 months or 6 months of continuous habit to like build this identity. 90 minutes. You know, that's what we did with with my last identity session that I did, and it's crazy. I mean, I will say this too, like this precise language thing, it is simple, but it is crazy powerful. And what happens a lot, and this happens to you, when you have a lot of new lights turned on, it puts extra stress on the system, and you tend to get sick. And so getting sick for those 3 days, I call that like your resurrection, because it happens to so many people where your first really intense precise language session, your immune system just shuts down, and it's like it happened to Nico.
It's like doing a detox where you just run to the bathroom for days and you're like, oh, fuck. So it's an emotional detox.
As we're closing out, you got any other?
No, I think it should be good. I mean, it's been an exciting process, and I just, I use it every day in my life. Always like my business partners, whenever they say something that represents less than clear language, I'm just like, okay, what do you mean? I was doing it today. We had a client who was having trouble with their software, and they had put in their email support request, and I was giving my business partner clear instructions on how to deal with it, and then he went through, dealt with the problem right away, versus what a lot of people do is they'll spend 4 or 5 email exchanges wasting all this time. But so yeah, anyways, it's just another example of how you can use it in any context.
Yeah.
So
dope, dude. Cool. Thanks for coming by.
All right.
Peace, bud. All right. Well, for those of you who are still watching, like this precise language thing, like I told buddies in my mastermind that like this whole thing is not so much for marketing purposes or for teaching purposes. Selfishly, this precise language podcast is just to like get it out, because it's very challenging to articulate. So you have definitely been one of my precise language punching bags. I get to just kind of practice and think about it, and write notes and notes and notes of notebooks, and keep in mind, this is the first time that B's been on this YouTube channel, but there are so many videos of us. I mean, because when we started, we were in a very different place to where we basically all we had was each other and some cheap video equipment. So when this blows up at some point, we'll go into those archives and release some of those
there we go. Yeah.
deep conversations.
The vintage. See ya.
Yeah. Peace, buddy.